I'm going to show you in this video how to deal with information that's not numerical. It's sometimes a little easier to deal with numbers than words, especially when you're, using graphs and charts. So this is the billionaire data, but I've deleted everything that I don't want, and I'm only using the year 2014. So what I'm going to do here is turn this gender category into numerical data. So I'm going to use this function called COUNTIF. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I want to count this if this cell has the word female in it, okay? And it does not, so it says 0. But what I can do is I can copy this, and Excel is smart enough to know that for each cell you'll be referring to the neighboring cell and not the original cell. So I can copy and paste this formula for the entire column. Okay, so it'll just take it a little bit to work since there are so many rows. Okay, but now you can see that the ones that have female have a 1. So I'm going to call this female. And then I'm going to do the same thing for male, and it'll be almost the same as this, so I can actually copy it, and then instead of female, I'll just change this to male, okay? And then this will, actually I'm just going to have to change it from D2 to C2, so that's the only other thing that you have to change. And then you'll see that since it has male, it has a 1. So I'm going to copy this formula, and again, I'm going to paste it down the entire column. And you can see that the males, in the male column, they'll have a 1, and then in the female column, they'll have a 1 if they have a female as a gender. Now, this is useful because then what we can do is we can go ahead and create what's called a pivot table. Now, pivot tables can be pretty confusing, but in this case, I think it's going to be straightforward enough that we can make one. So I'm going to select all my data. I just did Control A there, if you don't know that shortcut. And then I'm going to say Data and Pivot Table. So it has selected all my data, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in a new worksheet, which is just going to show up in a new tab on the bottom. Okay, so you're going to get to this sheet, and there's going to be nothing in it so far. But what we want to do, so let's say that I'm trying to figure out how many female billionaires are in a country and how many male billionaires are in each country. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take citizenship and make that one of the row labels. And then for the values, I'm going to do not gender because that was the text column, but I'm going to do female, and I'm going to do male. So now we have this little chart saying how many female billionaires each country has and how many male billionaires each country has. And from here, we can actually do some calculations. So let's say that I want to see the percentage of female billionaires. Then what I can do is I can say, and you'll note that in some cases this calculation is not going to work out because there's zeros, but we can say this equals this number divided by, then we're going to want to do the sum of this number and this number because we want not, the number of females over the number of males, but the number of females over the total number of billionaires. And then we'll multiply that, by 100 to get the percentage. So times 100, okay? So it's 0 here, and we can actually go ahead and copy this formula and paste it for all countries. Okay, and then you have here a percentage. So what you would want to do if you're using this data is, first of all, you'll notice that I'm not going to want to use a country like Algeria because there's only 1 billionaire. So that's not likely to give me any really useful data because my sample size is 1. So even though there's 0% female billionaires, there's also only 1 billionaire. So that's not really useful information. So I can use this to kind of take the amount of data I have and narrow it down to what I actually want to use. But what I also want to do is I'm probably going to want to format these to just make them a little bit easier to read. So format cells, and if it'll show up here, make it into a percentage. And since a lot of these have like a lot of decimal places, I would just narrow it down to, like 2 decimal places. And one mistake that I made here was multiplying by 100. So I'm going to take that away because we don't need that now that it's recognizing it as a percentage. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste it. Okay. So now I have actual percentages. So for example, in Angola, 100% of the billionaires are female. Again, this is not really a very useful country to look at data for because there's just not a great number of entries. But if we look at China, we can see that 6.5% of the billionaires are female. So that's something interesting to look at. So hopefully this kind of shows you how to take data that might be very difficult to chart, like the word male or female, and make that into a number that's useful. And also this takes a lot of excuse me, a lot of time away from having to manually calculate.